Hi there everybody, and welcome back to the Joe Nerd's Toy Room, here with my very first Masters of the Universe vintage figure reviews. Now, as you can see, I'm attempting to do a 2-for-1 review here, mostly because, as most of you will remember, I have already sort of showed my vintage Kobra Khan figure. So I decided to kind of try to, I'm going to do my best time-wise to see if I can squeeze this in just under 15 minutes. So, now, what I was going to bring up too is that we have here this is a point I wanted to make actually. In my belief, we have a true blood Snake Man character and figure, and then we have a adopted Snake Man figure or character, as I like to refer to him, because as most of you out there will know that are familiar with this line, and for those who aren't as familiar, Kobra Khan here was released in 1984. Long before, a good 2 years before Mattel created the Snake Man. And then what they did is, smartly, I agree with the decision. They had Kobra Khan here. So it was 1984, they brought out Kobra Khan, and then 1986 they debuted the Snake Man. And they figured, hey, we've got this Kobra Khan figure already, let's just throw him into the mix. And I think I really like that. I especially like Mattel's rationalization or the way that they explained it story-wise, Kobra Khan's inclusion into the Snake Man. It was very good. It was featured in a little mini comic called, I forget exactly what it was called, but it was a mini comic that came, I believe, with all three of the original 3 Snake Men. So it came with Rattlor, Tongue Lashor, and King Hiss. So if you go to He-Man.org, that website, I know that they have a real big database of all of the mini comics, and you can check out nice scans of them and you can read them for yourself. I would really recommend that mini comic. It was very, very good, and it explained Kobra Khan's inclusion into the Snake Man, whereas Kobra Khan asked King Hiss to join the Snake Man, but under Skeletor's orders, so he could be Skeletor's spy, while Skeletor and King Hiss had their uneasy alliance. So, let's get on to the toys. So, first of all, I'm going to remove Rattlor, and we're going to deal a little bit with Kobra Khan here. So, as most of you are familiar with this figure, but for those who aren't, I'm going to go into just a little detail, not too much. He's very plain, well, compared to some of the others. I shouldn't have said that. Plain isn't a fair way to describe this guy. I said that, I guess the urge to say that came from the fact that he reuses his limbs. So as you might notice, he uses the classic Skeletor arms and legs, but that really doesn't stop him from being a great looking figure. And also I find his torso, despite his water spraying gimmick, which I'll show off in a second, Mattel actually did a good job of not having his torso be so bulked up as you might imagine it might have been. So they escaped the doom of having him be way misproportioned, but he isn't really that misproportioned. So that's a really good thing. Another interesting thing I noticed about him too, that I always thought about him, is they opted to give him full paint apps along his back. So they gave him the brown or the light brown scales along his back, even in the center. Whereas on the front, they opted to just leave it unpainted in the center. And you know, now that I think about it, I think it was a good idea. Then it gives more of a, you know, kind of lends more of the idea of the front is the belly of the snake, you know. So, all right, let us get on to the head of the figure. Now, as I mentioned in the Classics Kobra Khan review, yeah, like I was thinking, it's getting a little confusing because these are vintage, the old ones are vintage, and then the new ones are classics. So that doesn't really seem to make much sense when you're just talking like that. But anyway, that confusion aside, sometimes I slip up with that. So you've got the head, his head is, like I mentioned in the other review, it's best viewed from the side. From the front, it's a little weird looking, but to the side, it's very nice. So the water spraying gimmick, just pull off his head, and as you can see, it's the mechanism inside is the same thing as like a household water sprayer that you may have. If you can hear that, it even has that light little rattle that all of those spray bottles seem to have. And then you pour water into the neck. There's a little bit of space there to hold some water. And then put it down. And then to spray the water, just push down on his head. And there's a misconception I wanted to clear up about this guy. For those who aren't familiar with him too much, I've heard him be described as like a squirt gun feature. Really, that's not true. A squirt gun is like a stream of water, which is more like Dragon Blast or Skeletor. But this is more like a mist. When it shoots, it's not a stream of water. It's like a nice spray of water. So, that's about that. And then accessories lastly. Comes with this nice little repurposed version. A bright red, solid red colored repurposed version of Zodak's laser pistol. Had to get that out there, jeez. And anyway, another thing about it is that he doesn't hold it very well, as you can probably tell here. He kind of just more or less grasps it with his thumb along the at the base of the handle. But anyway, that's Kobra Khan. So let's put him off to the back while I finally bring in the real star of the show, in my opinion. My really nice mint condition. I'm really proud to have this guy in my collection. My mint condition Rattlor figure. I got this guy, he was sealed on card, and I opened him and he is pristine. So, now, what do I want to point out on this guy? You know, as you can tell, he's very vibrant, very colorful, very, very nice. He has, alright, this is interesting. He has kind of weird proportions. As you can see, his legs are very stubby, very short. And I find that when you look at him from the side, it really, I kind of like the look because I kind of see, like, from the head right down to the end of the tail, it's kind of like a snake where the arms sprouted out, mutated out, and then the legs kind of sprouted out, but the legs, you know, there's not much to them because, of course, you know, snakes don't have legs. But anyway, aside from that obvious observation, let's get to the legs and the color on them and the belt. So he has a very unique shaped belt. It really reminds me of Trapjaw's belt. And of course he has the Snake Men insignia, which is the nice curled up little serpent there. And he has very nice blue and kind of like cream colored scales. Give him a lot of vibrant color. And I like the idea too, because it just goes with that notion about the most dangerous snakes are the brightest in color. I really like that. And as you can see, the belly is his torso here on the belly. He has a really nice thick cream color paint app. It's very nicely thickly applied, so there's none of the really dark maroon red bleeding through or anything like that. He's got the same scale pattern along the arms. Funny thing about him is that his arms are the most normal, manly looking thing about him. The most, the most human thing about him, I should say. So let's get on to the features of this guy, because this guy actually, Mattel really went out of their way with this guy. He actually has two features. So the first feature is, you may have already heard it, he has a nice little rattling gimmick. And then the second is really the main feature, which really makes him dangerous. He has a nice surprise attack, quick strike attack. So if you push down on the small of his back, what I'm gonna do is give it some room. He has a nice quick strike snake attack. So he can lunge his fangs down on the poor unsuspecting heroic warrior who's foolish enough to stand toe-to-toe with this guy. So let's spring his head, or lock his head back into place. It holds very well. And you know what's interesting is, when I bought this guy, I was a little concerned that, that this guy he comes carded in the bubble like this. And I was worried about the spring inside of him being compressed for so long, for so many years, like over 20 years that spring was compressed in there. And man, it shoots out, and like there is nothing, it has aged really well. Really tells you like the quality of these guys. The quality of action figures back in the 80s was amazing. So accessories. Unfortunately, that's the part where where Rattlor kind of suffers a little bit. He kind of got the short end of the stick when it comes to accessories. All he includes is this dark maroon or dark red snake staff. It's a nice little staff with a curled up rattlesnake wrapped around it. And that's pretty much all she wrote. And he can hold it very tightly, very well. And that's Rattlor. So, to wrap it all up, guys, hope you all enjoyed this review. I'm really happy to see how popular my first Masters of the Universe review was. Really, I was taken by surprise, honestly. But I'm really glad that some of you really appreciate these reviews, because I am more than happy to do as many of these as I possibly can. New and vintage. So, until next time, everybody out there, I want to thank you all for watching, and I will talk to you all in the very near future. Bye for now.